Alice and Ryan announced their marriage, and the news spread everywhere, receiving countless blessings from netizens. Everyone thought I would make a big scene. After all, I had pursued Alice for 10 years, and everyone believed I loved her so much that I couldn't let go. But no one knew that I had been waiting for this day for 10 years. A villain like me, Mark, was even more eager for them to get married than anyone else. Alice and Ryan's wedding had hundreds of camera angles. They even invited famous influencers to live stream it. Who understands me? I finally get to see General Manager Alice and my idol together. That person must be furious, haha. From beginning to end, they didn't have it easy getting together. My idol finally married the person he loves. If it weren't for that villain, General Manager Alice would have long been my idol's wife. But it's also thanks to him that my idol realized his true feelings. Oh my God, so touching. General Manager Alice, you must be happy with my idol. I hope that name doesn't cause trouble today. Comments flooded the screen, but I only glanced at a few. Either they were blessing the newlyweds or cursing me. If it were before, I would have definitely jumped into a verbal battle with them. But after 10 years, I've become immune to these malicious words. I nestled into a corner, quietly observing my surroundings. I only hoped today's wedding could proceed smoothly to avoid drawing attention. I even deliberately wore a style I had never tried before. Today, I temporarily played the role of an outsider. The atmosphere at the wedding was extremely lively. In the front row were Alice's parents, Ryan's parents, and my father and stepmother. In the crowd, there were also many familiar faces from the industry. On the large screen, wedding photos of Alice and Ryan appeared one after another. Smiles that I used to beg for now appeared everywhere here. In that festive atmosphere, the MC stepped onto the stage, signaling the official start of the wedding. It's no exaggeration to say that I was even more nervous than the newlyweds because this was the day that would determine my fate. I didn't want to be labeled as a pathetic love-struck fool forever. Call me villainous, I accept it. But call me a pathetic love-struck fool, I can't swallow that. On stage, Ryan in a black suit looked extremely tall and handsome. He stood steadily, his deep eyes looking towards the bride walking towards him. Look at General Manager Alice's eyes. He loves her to death. General Manager Alice is so beautiful. Ryan is a famous film emperor, a national idol loved by the entire internet. Therefore, this wedding specially reserved 100 slots for his fans so they could witness this moment firsthand. The people standing near me are probably his fans. They're about to exchange rings. Hearing this, I also turned my gaze towards the stage. Ryan slowly picked up the wedding ring, preparing to put it on Alice's hand. Looking at his movements, even my breathing stopped. But just before the ring touched the bride's hand, Ryan suddenly stopped. His eyes stared straight at me. I knew he had spotted me, and I also knew that on such an important day, he wouldn't easily let me off. Sure enough, the next second, Ryan took the microphone. Thank you everyone for attending my and Alice's wedding, but I also want to especially thank someone. This person is probably familiar to you all. All eyes turned towards me. The people around probably hadn't recognized me yet. You probably all know that Alice and I didn't reach today easily. We went through a lot of difficulties. Those familiar with their story all knew. Yes, those difficulties were all caused by me, not only because of the mission but also because of the selfishness in my heart. Mark, I know you are unwilling, but I still want to say that love doesn't distinguish between who comes first or later. It's true that you were by Alice's side for a long time, but she only saw you as family, not a lover. I hope you will find someone who truly loves you in the future, and thank you, Alice. She has always stood by my side. I felt countless malicious gazes focused on me, and some people even moved closer, their eyes filled with anger looking at me. This was exactly what Ryan wanted, to drag me out in front of the crowd and make me bear the brunt. Finally, Ryan still completed the interrupted action, decisively putting the ring on Alice's hand. Seeing this scene, I could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Alice and her idol are married now. If a villain like him dared to sabotage their relationship, General Manager Alice wouldn't spare him. The girl opposite me growled. I looked at her, nodding without hesitation. Don't worry, I will definitely bless them for life. Congratulations, host. Alice and Ryan have successfully married. Mission accomplished. Perfect ending. Happy ending award. Happy ending award. Host, your mission is complete. I must leave too. Where are you going? This voice, only I could hear, had been with me since 10 years ago when this system appeared. I could hear it, and Ryan was its host. From his mouth, I learned that I was just a villain in this story. I tried to change my script, But no matter what I did, it was useless. So, I just played my role as a villain, completed the story, and waited for him to leave. Then I would go to another world. Okay, 9527. Thank you for giving me a new life. No need to thank you, host. Next, please live well. I won't be back. After that sentence, no more sound was heard. It seemed 9527 had really left. It's gone, and from now on, I am truly the villain. Before leaving the wedding venue, I looked directly at Ryan on stage and gave a slight smile. Your good days are over. Returning home, the first thing I did was throw away everything that belonged to the past, contacted a moving service, and then posted a message on my WeChat account pinned at the top. After doing these things, it was already late at night. For 10 years, I had diligently played the villain, helping the male and female protagonists nurture their relationship. I was a tool for them to be together, so what? But now, the story has come to an end. The script could control me, but who knows where things will go after it ends. The things I once offered up as a pathetic love-struck fool, I will take them back bit by bit now. The first target is the position that Alice currently holds. 3 days passed, and the heat of the wedding between Alice and Ryan hadn't subsided at all. The entire internet was talking about this wedding of the century. Thanks to this wedding, Ryan successfully expanded his international market, helping more foreigners know about his image as a film emperor. The day I returned home, before I even stepped inside, I heard cheerful laughter from within. Without looking, I knew it was a scene of family happiness inside. But I deliberately came here to spoil the atmosphere. The first to notice me was Ryan. Mark, you're back. He smiled and said, we were just talking about you. It's been a long time since we ate together. You're back just in time to eat together. Sure. Looking at them happy like a perfect family, my mood got even better. It felt like even the surrounding air was sweet. Since you're back, reconcile with your brother and don't cause trouble. A middle-aged man's voice rang out. My biological father. Now they've gotten their marriage certificate. If you still interfere in their relationship, you are the third party. I looked directly at him. It was hard to believe these were words a father said to his biological son. But I had heard even harsher words than this from his mouth too many times. It's just that now I no longer cared. If you don't care, you won't feel pain. Of course, I wasn't stupid enough to do that despicable thing. David's face clearly became unpleasant. Fortunately, at that moment, my stepmother spoke up. Dinner is ready. Everyone come to the table. The tense atmosphere also eased. But just as everyone sat down, Ryan spoke again. This position has always been for Mom, but if Mark likes it, Mom can switch places. I glanced at Ryan, giving a faint smile. He also smiled back at me, a gentle smile in front of others, but only I knew what was beneath that mask. Mary, my stepmother, didn't mind at all, just smiled kindly. It's okay. If Mark likes it, let him sit there. Alice frowned, showing displeasure. Mark, are you still unwilling to change? Hearing this, I chuckled coldly, not bothering to reply. I immediately flipped over the entire dining table, plates and bowls falling to the ground, food spilling everywhere. This is my house. I slowly looked over everyone in the room. Who told you that I have to watch other people's faces when eating in my own house? Eat if you want, get out if you don't. The entire dining room suddenly fell silent. Everyone in the room was stunned. Seemingly no one expected that I would resist, and the target of my resistance was Alice. Everyone knew she was the person I loved but couldn't have. Before, I was always stubborn, only listening to Alice. She also took this as a point of pride, often bragging. Look, even if he's a young master of a wealthy family, so what? If I tell him to go east, he absolutely wouldn't dare go west. So, everyone thought that I would always be subservient to her, never resist. But they seemed to have forgotten one thing. I used to have my own pride. Even though I had been a simp for 10 years, I never truly lost myself. I only personally hid my sharp edges. Now that I was freed from the shackles, I would naturally live in the most comfortable way, never humbling myself again. Mark, you dare to defy me? David angrily roared. Do you believe I'll kick you out of the house? If it were before, I would definitely have panicked and admitted my mistake. After all, the villain is always someone lacking love, always craving the affection of his parents when controlled by the script. It's true I used to be held by these kinds of words from David, but now it's different. Dad, it seems you've forgotten something, I said calmly, my tone full of sarcasm. This mansion is under my name. These words were like a direct blow to David's head, his face instantly becoming unpleasant. Mary, my stepmother, realizing the situation was not good, quickly interjected, "Mark, don't joke around. The property ownership certificate is still locked in the safe. Your dad can't stand this kind of joke." David at this point also realized something was wrong, his eyes filled with anger staring at me as if blaming me for being an unfilial son. But I wasn't in the mood to waste words with him. "Jane, serve the food." "Yes, young master. I'll bring it out right away." "Don't call him young master. Call him second young master," David roared, but Jane ignored him, turning around to go into the kitchen to get food. Jane's food was still as delicious as ever. I ate while glancing at Ryan, noticing his face was slightly pale. Clearly, the young master just now had stimulated him quite a bit. "Dad, don't tell me you're planning to put Ryan into the family tree of the Keys? Ryan is the son of David and Mary, 3 months older than me. Do I need to remind you?" I said slowly, my eyes cold. "The Key family in this house belongs to Grace Key, not David Key. Grace Key was my mother, my biological mother, a gentle and kind woman. Unfortunately, she was too infatuated with love, ultimately falling into David's trap, a man who only knew how to exploit women to climb up, and her ending was naturally tragic. Everyone didn't believe the mansion was under my name, so I would give them a big gift." I immediately contacted the legal team to proceed with the procedures to evict all of them from the house. Then, I hired people to thoroughly clean the entire mansion, uproot all the flowers in the garden, and transform it into a vegetable patch. Before, I wasn't the owner of the house, but from the age of 18, everything changed. When they were enjoying a luxurious life, I was secretly building up strength, waiting for the opportunity to counterattack. The phone kept ringing, but I simply turned it off. Although I really wanted to enjoy the feeling of watching them struggle, I also knew villains die from talking too much. The most important thing now was to pull the male and female protagonists down from their positions. Ryan had just taken on a new role in a film crew, and Alice had just been promoted and hadn't had time to consolidate her position. I quietly pushed a little wind behind them, letting them tear each other apart first. I just needed to sit and wait for the opportunity to clean up the mess. Unsurprisingly, David finally brought Mary to find me. After all, he had been a general manager for so many years. How could he easily accept defeat? As soon as he met me, he raised his hand to slap me, but I quickly blocked it, backhanding a slap straight into Mary's face. I had wanted to do this for a long time. She was the last straw, the ultimate reason for my mother's complete collapse. She knew my mother was seriously ill, yet she blatantly brought Ryan into the house, brazenly stepping up as the mistress. She even threw the DNA test results in my mother's face, telling her that the baby in her belly was her husband's biological child. These words made my mother so angry that she couldn't breathe, ultimately dying unjustly. Yet after my mother passed away, Mary only calmly said one sentence: "Oh dear, I didn't know she was so seriously ill." 3 months after my mother passed away, she officially stepped into this house. That was also the first time I met Ryan, and also the first time I heard the voice of the system. I was unwilling and publicly exposed the whole story of David and Mary on the internet. Initially, public opinion was furious. They were constantly attacked. But not long after, Ryan started a live stream. On the live broadcast, he cried and recounted the moving love story of Mary and David, saying that they were childhood sweethearts, that because a wealthy young lady took a fancy to David, he was forced to succumb to her power, leading to their separation for over a decade. Finally, after my mother passed away, she not only had to endure injustice but also became a sacrificial lamb for the enemy to gain a good reputation. It was also from that time that Ryan began to gain public attention, stepping from a child star to a national idol step by step, and in this process, I was the one who helped propel him to the top. Thoughts returning to the present, I looked at Mary. She was stunned by my slap. Before she could recover, another slap landed. David at this moment finally woke up, angrily roaring, "Mark, what are you doing?" I chuckled lightly, quickly landing another slap on Mary's face. "What did Dad just say?" I tilted my head, my tone a bit provocative. "Sorry, I didn't hear clearly." David was so angry that his whole body trembled, raising his hand to hit me but hesitating when he saw the baseball bat in my hand. This was something I just conveniently picked up, seemed very suitable to use. "Explain it to me now." He gritted his teeth. "What exactly is going on with this mansion? Why is it under your name on the documents?" I was in a good mood, so I decided to take some time to explain to them. This mansion was originally under my mother's name. After she passed away, all the assets were transferred to me, just waiting for me to reach adulthood, then I could officially inherit. But Dad is different. Dad has been eyeing this property for a long time, right? I gave a cold smile. When I wasn't old enough, Dad asked me to sign the property transfer documents, saying it was to help me temporarily manage it. But unfortunately, I also asked a lawyer to help me set up a layer of protection. My mother, even though she was blinded by love, at least she was still sane enough not to push her own son to a dead end. The property ownership certificate under my name, in fact, was just a small trick to deceive the system. Just change the name back once again. Everything will return to the right track. As I finished speaking, David and Mary's faces turned pale, as if they had just realized that everything they had tried so hard to compete for all this time turned out to be in vain. Looking at their pained expressions, my mood became even more joyful. Taking advantage of being in high spirits, I couldn't help but add a few sarcastic remarks. Dad, you can't even make a Phoenix man properly, yet you dare to openly bring a mistress into the house. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw the faces of the two people turn dark. Satisfied, I didn't want to waste more time with them. I immediately ordered the security to evict them, then closed the door immediately. I contacted a series of major bloggers, anonymously sending all the scandalous information about Ryan to them. The internet is a double-edged sword. Before, Ryan used it to smear me. Now that same sword would stab him. Just as the series of news about Ryan was about to explode, I was unexpectedly pushed to the hot search list first. Villain Mark is playing tricks again. Looking at this title, I really wanted to applaud the author of the article. Indeed, it very much fit my image in the public eye. The article was full of old accusations, disrespectful to elders, beating stepmother, evicting father from the house. And Ryan, with the title of National Idol, had inadvertently turned Mary into a national stepmother. Moreover, they often participated in variety shows together, building a model mother-son image that was admirable. People praised their relationship as even better than that between biological mother and son. So, now that this incident broke out, Mary obviously also became a figure of attention. This matter was not originally worth making a big deal of, but unfortunately, today was too coincidental. When Mary called Ryan crying and complaining, he was live streaming. So, everything just spread like that. I was very satisfied with this result, only worried it wasn't big enough. Unsurprisingly, immediately afterwards, a series of articles began to spread wildly on the internet, exposing what kind of person National Idol Ryan really was. National Idol bullies others. The truth behind the glitz and glamour. Uncovering the unknown dark sides of Ryan. The one who shouts about morality is actually the one with the most scandals. On the hot search list, Ryan alone occupied 5 positions, and all those articles were posted at night. At that time, most people had gone to sleep, but when they woke up, this news had been widely shared. Even if they wanted to withdraw from the hot search, it was too late. The next morning, when Ryan saw this series of articles, his face darkened. He clearly knew that the negative news about him had been cleaned up long ago, but he couldn't understand why these things were once again dug up. I sat in front of the screen, smirking coldly. It must be because I was behind it. I had spent many years secretly collecting everything related to him. The main purpose was to this day, to expose all the things he had concealed to the light. However, before that series of news could climb higher, they were quickly removed. The public opinion army began to intervene, trying to clean up this mess. I knew that wasn't enough, but as long as this news existed in the hearts of netizens, at least it would plant a seed of doubt. Mouths said they trusted their idol, but in reality, Ryan's fan count had decreased by 3 million in just one night. Although compared to his total number of fans, this number was insignificant, but it was enough. Currently, Ryan and Alice had become a unified whole, so her company was also affected to a certain extent. In just one night, the stock price fluctuated sharply, and Alice began to be busy dealing with it, looking extremely stressed. Initially, she was very angry, but thanks to the constant comfort from everyone around her, she finally calmed down somewhat. Now, too many eyes were watching them, and quite a few people hoped they couldn't live well. After the script ended, I felt an invisible force that had been weighing me down suddenly vanish. Everything I did now became smoother than ever, losing the protagonist's halo. In the end, they were just ordinary people. When Ryan's film crew held a wrap party, I deliberately appeared at the venue where they were holding it. "Mark, why are you here?" I deliberately made provocative eye contact, directly looking at Ryan, then turned around and left without looking back. I knew for sure that he would chase after me. Sure enough, as soon as I turned into a hidden corner, his voice rang out behind me. "Mark, the thing's on the internet. You did it, right?" The malice in his tone was undisguised. I didn't deny it. "Mark, it's useless. Don't try to resist me anymore." He slowly took a step forward, lowering his voice. "You can't beat me. 5 years ago was like that. 5 years later is still like that. Moreover, now you have nothing in hand. What do you have to fight me with?" Ryan was best at playing the good guy in front of others, but this was his true face. I smirked. "Ryan, do you want to let your fans see this appearance?" He frowned, not answering. Seeing him clench his fists, about to hit me, I immediately blocked it, even kicking him to the ground. Freedom really is a wonderful feeling. "Mark, you think you can beat me?" I looked at him lying on the ground, laughing coldly. "Could it be that you think I have nothing? What do you rely on to assert that?" "Relying on that system 9527. I clearly saw the shock in his eyes. For so many years of suppression, finally, I could throw it all away, but it was still not enough. "Ryan, do you think that just relying on some nameless creature can overthrow me? Do you think being the male protagonist means you can get whatever you want?" I chuckled. "If you're called a male protagonist, at least you must have the ability to handle everything yourself. Relying on others to step on others. Is that called a male protagonist?" Ryan's face became more and more unpleasant. I patted him lightly on the shoulder, softly said, "Enjoy your last days." This time, Ryan was really frightened by me. After that, he no longer actively looked for me, nor did he post affectionate photos with Alice on the internet like before. While he was busy trying to control public opinion, I went to Alice's company. She quickly appeared in front of me. Clearly someone had informed her. After all, I was a villain who was often cursed on the internet, and in the past, I had come to her company for excuses many times. Now this villain suddenly appeared. Surely it had caused quite a stir. "Mark, what are you doing here?" Alice said coldly. "I'm married now. I hope you have some self-respect." I chuckled, looking at the employees around who were observing while secretly typing on their keyboards. "General Manager Alice, don't be like that," I said calmly. "We will be good colleagues. As the largest shareholder of the company, can I come to work?" On that very day, I officially entered the company under the name of Mark Key, my legal name. Seeing me sitting in the office that Alice used to use, the surrounding employees were all stunned. I sat down, comfortably took a deep breath, then called the assistant over. All the things in this office, changed them all for me. Alice, seeing this scene, her face became more and more unpleasant. "Mark, don't go too far." I calmly picked up a sculpture on the table, swung my hand and threw it to the ground. Clang shards scattered everywhere. I raised my head, giving a gentle smile. "General Manager Alice, oh no, should be called Deputy General Manager Alice now, right? From now on, please give me more guidance, Deputy General Manager." Before, I didn't dare to come forward because as soon as I showed myself, I would have no chance of survival. The power of the storyline was terrifying, but now I was free. Alice angrily turned around and left. I was very happy, ordering drinks for all the company employees, even giving them 2 days off. The next step was to prepare myself mentally for the upcoming shareholders' meeting. On the day of the meeting, Alice appeared in a completely different state, no longer looking depressed as before. Instead, she had a confident and vibrant demeanor. Also appearing at today's shareholder meeting, besides Alice, were David, Mary, and Ryan. I sat at the highest position, easily observing the expressions of everyone below. The first thing I did was call security. "Security, please remove the irrelevant people from the meeting room." David immediately stood up, frowning and asking, "Mark, why? Why are you evicting us?" I chuckled, folding my arms and leaning back in my chair. "Dad also agrees to let him stay?" I pointed at Ryan. "Shareholders' meetings are not places for any actors. This isn't your film crew, Film Emperor Ryan." I tilted my head, signaling for security to invite them out. See how kind I am. I haven't even ordered them to be thrown out directly, already very polite. Unsurprisingly, the other shareholders didn't trust me. They all said Alice was the most suitable person for this position, and I should consciously give way. I glanced at the loudest shouters. One of them, Mr. Huang, spoke in a strange tone. "If you're suitable, you should be in a suitable position. Mr. Key, I don't think you're suitable for this place." Alice opportunely interjected, playing the good guy. Mark, if you want to work, just tell me. I can arrange a position for you. But what you're doing now not only affects me, but also many people in the company. Not everyone is like you, not needing to worry about food and clothing. I nodded in agreement. Not wrong. Can't affect the work of other people because of me. I paused for a moment, slowly continuing. Then Alice even more shouldn't stay in the company. Then, I turned to Mr. Huang. Regarding what you just said, I also have a few words I want to say. Things that don't belong to you. Don't have illusions about seizing them. Even if you are the most suitable person, if it's not yours, it's still not yours. I smiled calmly, continuing. And I also want to remind everyone, the Key family in Key Corporation belongs to Grace Key, not David Key, and even less can it be changed to the Alice family. Just someone my mother once helped, in her spare time. What qualifications does she have to dare to dream of this position? Alice is actually just one of the poor children supported by my mother. I didn't deny her ability, but I couldn't accept an ingrate. If it weren't for the appearance of the system 10 years ago, perhaps in this lifetime, I wouldn't even pay attention to Alice. So, saying I licked her for 10 years, it's better to say I supervised her for 10 years. It was said that after returning home, Alice and Ryan had a big fight. Ryan angrily said she was too stupid, revealing such a big loophole without realizing it, causing him to be ambushed without time to react. Alice also refused to back down, scolding back. Even a fool like Mark you can't handle. Then what have you been doing all these years? Ryan coldly retorted, if you can't deal with David, then what use are you? But in fact, even if David was dealt with, it wouldn't change anything. The amount of shares in his hand was insignificant. David was a selfish person. Even if he died, he would never be willing to hand over anything of his own. The power struggle began, and the first to be defeated was Alice. I kept pressing her step by step at the company. Now she only had an empty title of Deputy General Manager, and her marriage with Ryan was no better. Less than 3 months after the wedding, the two of them had started arguing, a big fight every 3 days, a small fight every 5 days. I had said it before, when the system left, their good days also ended from here. After a period of depression, Ryan started showing off his happy life with the female CEO on the internet again. I looked at the calendar, finally understanding why he did that, because Leo was about to return. Leo, my younger brother, the younger brother my mother gave birth to. Ryan even called me to inform me, Mark, Leo is coming back soon. You must talk to Leo properly, don't be like before. I chuckled coldly, slowly replying, don't worry, I will definitely speak well of you in front of Leo. After all, you are the brother who loves him very much, right? My tone was full of sarcasm. Then, without hesitation, I hung up the phone, leaned back on the sofa, sinking into memories. When I was still controlled by the script, the only thing I could do to resist, it was to send Leo abroad, despite everyone's opposition. Because the control range of the storyline was limited to the country, so if Leo was sent abroad, in this story, he was considered as never having existed. That was a loophole in the system. But because of this, the relationship between me and Leo also completely broke down. Ryan took the opportunity to step in, becoming someone who cared more about Leo than me, his biological brother. As for me, I paid the price for resisting the storyline. I lost control of my body for 7 days. Those 7 days, I was no different from an NPC manipulated by the system, but being able to help Leo escape the script was already the most worthwhile thing. Also from that time, the title of villain had followed me until now. Leo returned to the country, and Alice also became stronger, returning to work at the company as if nothing had happened. Not for any other reason, but because Leo was the largest shareholder of the company. Over the past few years, the relationship between them had never been cut off, even closer than me, his biological brother. On the day Leo returned, David brought Mary, and Alice brought Ryan, together returning to the mansion. I was naturally also present. Compared to Leo when he just came of age, he was now taller, thinner, and also much more mature. Of course, his skin had also become fairer, but his sharp tongue was still the same. You're darker again, and also fatter. This was the first sentence he said when he met me. No touching reunion scene, no joy of reunion. Only the confrontation like fire and water. Leo, you're finally back. Everyone misses you to death. Every day we worry about you abroad, not having enough to eat and wear. Ryan smiled brightly, said with an extremely close attitude. Don't blame Mark for being heartless. He did that just because he wanted what was best for you. Leo's face immediately darkened upon hearing this, fiercely glaring at me. I helplessly shrugged. Children are still children, sulking for so long. Seeing Leo glare at me, Ryan spoke even more vigorously, chattering nonstop. Finally, Leo lost patience, coldly speaking, "Shut up." The living room immediately fell silent. Leo, this is your brother. You must speak properly. David's tone carried a hint of reproach, but everyone knew Ryan was the son he loved the most. It turned out before, I still thought David just didn't like children. Later understood, he just didn't like Grace Key's biological son. Leo's temper was still the same as before. He swept his eyes towards David, his tone full of cynicism. You shut up too. I'm not stupid, don't need you to teach me. While speaking, he glared at me. I shrugged, showing that I didn't care. David could scold me, but towards Leo, he didn't dare to even utter a peep. After all, that year, it was Leo who went crazy and beat him up, then sent him to the hospital, lying there for half a month. He really dared to strike, not caring who the opponent was, also not caring about showing mercy to women. The person most qualified to speak about this was Mary. When she first came here, she was tormented by Leo to the point of nervous breakdown. From then on, no one dared to provoke him anymore. But if according to the original script, Leo's ending was not good either. That year, I was still young, couldn't protect my mother, but the only relative my mother left for me, I must protect at all costs. Everyone thought that after Leo returned to the country, Leo and I would turn against each other, fighting to the death, so they could sit back and profit from our fight. After all, Leo and I had also confronted each other intensely before. Everyone knew that clearly. But they didn't expect that instead of arguing, we would cooperate together, one playing the villain, one playing the good guy, together filtering the company, pulling out all the insiders, including those loyal to Ryan, Alice, David, and Mary. It was ridiculous. The two couples, some suspected each other, some wanted to seize what didn't belong to them. On the very day the system left, I texted Leo, telling him he could return to the country. Before, Leo and I argued just because he didn't want to leave me here alone, but the script couldn't deviate too much. Otherwise, variables would appear, and the most terrifying thing was uncontrollable variables. We couldn't reach a consensus. In the end, I forced him to go abroad. Also thanks to that, everyone thought our relationship had really deteriorated. Later, I won't go again. Leo resentfully glared at me, said, "You're so annoying. Outsiders always think he's cold." But now he took the initiative to reconcile with me. I chuckled, softly said, "Won't anymore. The system won't come back again." Once again, Ryan was on the hot search list. To this day, the number of people he had offended was even more than me. I was just villainous, but never touched other people's interests, while he wore sheepskin, doing the deeds of a hungry wolf. Without the system's protection, sooner or later he would be exposed. Looking back, I suddenly realized the last words of the system when it left were more like a warning than a blessing. Only Ryan was foolish enough to think it was a blessing because things outside the ending were things the system couldn't control. The script couldn't control, and me, Mark Key, once again was called out when Ryan rushed into my house. I was eating spicy snail noodles. "What are you eating? Why does it smell so bad?" I didn't raise my head, just leisurely replied, "That's because you don't know how to appreciate it." Ryan gritted his teeth, his tone full of anger. "Mark, immediately remove all the news about me on the internet. Do you hear?" I raised my eyebrows, looking at him, my tone calm. "Do you believe I'll sue you for defamation?" At this moment, what gentle national idol no longer existed. In front of me was just an out-of-control madman. I chuckled lightly. It's not me who did it. But if it were me, it would definitely be more than just this. If it's not you, then who is it? The one who hates me most in this world. Besides you, who else could it be? I chuckled coldly, looking at him full of mockery. "I hate you, isn't that obvious?" I tilted my head, slowly said, "But even so, I also have an interesting gift I want to share with you." Saying that, I took out a stack of documents, threw it on the table in front of Ryan. Initially, he still tried to remain calm, flipping through page by page. But the more he read, the faster the speed became. Finally, his face turned pale. The entire stack of documents was thrown straight to the ground by him. "Where did you get these things?" I slowly ate a mouthful of noodles, calmly looking at him. Didn't I tell 9527 to destroy everything? Why do you still have it? Ryan muttered like crazy. I bent down, picking up the documents thrown on the ground, calmly flipping through them. Occasionally, I even slowly read out loud a few passages, then turn to ask him, so, is this true or false? In this one, can you explain it? Our national idol turns out to be like this? Is this moral depravity or twisted humanity? You played with 6 girls at once? I really didn't expect it. Ryan, I wonder if Alice knows about this. Shut up. Ryan roared loudly, snatching the documents from my hand, tearing them into pieces, scattering them all over the floor. I just chuckled lightly. Go ahead. Anyway, I have a lot more. Ryan panicked to the point of kneeling down in front of me, his pleading voice trembling. Mark, I beg you, please don't post these things online. It will destroy me. Mark, I was wrong, really wrong. Please forgive me. I won't compete with you anymore. I will die without these things. These things will kill me. I slowly put down the bowl, took a tissue, wiping my mouth clean, then bent down to look at the person kneeling at my feet. Before, I already said, things that belong to me will always be mine. No matter how you fight for them, it's useless. Forgive you. I chuckled softly. No way. Do you remember how my mother begged you people that year? But what did you do? You people forced her to death, and for the past 10 years, how have you treated me? Do I need to list them one by one? I looked at him, my voice slow and cold. All right, I also forgot one thing. I really don't admire you people being able to deceive the whole internet to this extent. With your own mother, you can even put on such a long act. You people must be very immersed in the role, right? Have you people forgotten your true identities? Aren't you just the son of a mistress? Ryan's face turned pale, his lips trembling, unable to speak. I bent down, looking at him full of contempt. If it weren't for 9527, do you think you could reach today? I slowly stood up straight, from above looking down at him. The man who once stood at the peak of glory, at this moment was so pathetic. He clenched his fists tightly, his eyes filled with resentment. Mark, this matter is not over yet. Who wins, who loses is still not known. I lazily raised my hand, pointing to the phone on the table, raising my eyebrows and smiling lightly. Sorry, Ryan. I'm live streaming. His body stiffened. He looked up, horrified, staring at the phone screen, where a series of comments were jumping continuously. Then, he let out a desperate scream. It's over. The national idol image he had painstakingly built for so many years had completely collapsed, just like the model stepmother image of Mary. The more famous they were before, the more they were cursed 100 times now. David, who was once seen as a good man, also couldn't escape the fate of being exposed. Once praised for the story of not retaliating against his ex-wife despite being betrayed. Thanks to that, he received sympathy and reputation, even made it to the cover of financial magazines. But when all the lies were exposed, all that awaited him was anger 100 times, 1,000 times greater. In the end, all of them had to receive retribution. The scandals were constantly being dug up. The illegal acts had been sent directly to the investigating agency. When all 4 of them frantically sold off their shares, Leo and I quickly acquired all of them at a low price. Even if it was just a little bit of benefit, I wouldn't leave it for anyone. I stood in the office, looking at the scene that had suffocated me for so many years. Now everything was finally over. I threw the documents on the table, turned to Leo. What will you do next? He looked at me, his eyes shining brightly, the corners of his lips slightly raised. I will take over the company. I nodded in satisfaction. They were right about one thing. I was not suitable for working. I only liked to lie around and count money. After everything, this time, I just wanted to live for myself.